Tim, what is it about these bugs in a box?
There's no way to shrink it down. There's no words that can describe it. They bring a healing. You either know or you have to know. The smell of a healthy hive, once you smell it, you'll never forget it. But just the ability to get up, take your health in your own hands. See, that's what we have to do. The desire to work these bees and the healing you get from it. It's something about a box full of bugs, you know what I'm saying? It's got a healing to it.
Mike, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Wow, those bugs in a box. There's something about them. It's an insect that can do so much, so many functions it has, so many things it has within itself, and we get to manipulate it. God allowed us to manipulate His creation and do the things we can do. We can make products from it, and it's just exciting to sit there and be able to propagate them and manipulate them and watch them do their thing and explode on you and watch the direct results of what you do. To me, it's nothing like it. It's like almost an addiction when you get to do this and you have this ability given to you to do this. So to me, that's what they are. They're just amazing, amazing insects.
Randy, what is it about those bugs in a box?
There's just something magical about those bugs in a box. I don't know a whole lot of beekeepers that don't have a watching chair or some way to sit out and just watch their bees. You just watch them work. It's just something, it's like watching a campfire. It's like sitting around at midnight watching a campfire. You're out there by yourself and it's quiet. But I do the same thing with my bees. They don't know all there is to know. I'll never know all there is to know, but there's so much to learn. It's all so interesting, and it brings together a community, in the way we're doing it with YouTube and with other things. It brings together a community of like-minded people that are, we're all a little off, kind of. It's relaxing, it's fun, and I'll be doing it from now on, just like you, I'm sure.
Bruce, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Man, I don't know. It's addictive from the day I first opened one up. It's therapeutic to me. It's always an adventure, and I just never know what to expect, and it's just very miraculous to me how they do what they do, and I don't know what it is. It's just something. There's an it about it that is just addicting that I just love, and I guess it's a way to interact fully with nature, and it's like opening a gift. Every time you open one, you never know what you're going to expect. It's a surprise, and so many things to learn, so many things to do, and so many things you can do with it, and I just love it. If you ever doubt that there's a God, just open a beehive and look at the bees, because there's just no way that just happened randomly. There's definitely something divine about that, and I just love it.
What is it about these bugs in a box that keeps us coming back, that keeps us working them in the rain, traveling across the country?
In the heat?
And the heat, the snow, the rain.
Snow?
The snow. That's a long story, right, Tim? Oh. There is just something about the bees, and I think the bees are just a conduit to people. Bees are a conduit to a connection that's way greater than ourselves. We can't fully understand what it is, but we're drawn to it. As we've heard folks talk about, there's a healing with the bees, mental, physical, spiritual. It ties people together, makes those connections, it brings us all together, it fulfills a part of us, that the result of engaging with the bees, the result of that action, the consequence of that action is joy and happiness. What is it exactly about those bees? I don't think I'll ever know, but I think I'll spend all my days trying to find out.
What's up,
Hey,
guys?
fellas.
What's happening?
How's it going?
It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I've ever met you two.
It's been a little while since we all got together, hasn't it?
Yeah, I know. Look at this. They're saying you're live. I know we're just sitting here like. I mean,
I got mesmerized by the video that we just watched.
what do we do next?
Man, I tell you, that was one of the greatest gifts I think that I ever received, was to be able to spend a little bit of time with so many of you beekeepers and just get into the heart and the mind of the beekeeper to try to better understand what it is about those bugs in a box that just keep us coming back. There's just something special about the bugs in a box. If you want to see the full video, check out the that video, Bugs in a Box, on our YouTube channel. I really enjoyed it. I got to thank Bruce for hosting the shindig down in the Dothan, Alabama area, and Craig Midget and Tim McCandless up in the Columbia, Tennessee area for putting that together and kind of facilitating all those folks kind of getting there. It was just there's sometimes with beekeeping especially, a lot of folks spend an awful lot of time focusing on our differences. The differences we have, and maybe how we feed, how we treat our size of colonies, what we do, how we do this, how we do that. And unfortunately, like anything else, the human aspect of it can sometimes use that as an us versus them, or can get pretty divisive. But I think when it comes right down to it, they're just something special about these bugs in a box. And if we can just focus on what we actually have in common and actually that commonality of just loving that gift that's been given to us, the bees, then I think everything else is just icing on the cake, you know. But anyways, I'll go on all night about that. But guys, what's new in your neck of the woods there, Bruce?
Well, you know, we went out to Utah. I don't know how many of you were able to see the video I did out there with Jonathan, and of course, hopefully everybody was able to see the video that we did when you came down here. That was just phenomenal. Mike Berry also did a great video on it. It was just a fun time. We had a blast and cracked open some hives and we got some queens placed and I haven't had a chance to get in my bees much, but I've got into 5 of the colonies that we put those queens in up at the farm in Newton. All 4 were a take. And then the backyard the other night after work, I opened that one up back here in the Apamay hive, and I saw some larvae in there. It was getting dark. I couldn't hardly see the eggs, but so I'm sure there was a queen in there because it had been too long for there to be larvae if it had been from the previous queen. And so I think she's out and laying, and I haven't made it up to Ozark yet, but that'll happen on Saturday, hopefully, weather permitting. And so far 5 for 5 in the ones I've looked at, and I'm excited about it to see how they do. But as far as the bees go, my biggest bee experience has been when I went out to Utah since I saw you last, Greg. Went out and hung out with Brian there for that day, and he's doing a lot of things right out there, doing a great job. And it was fun to go out there and kind of see how they do things different, but they do things the same out west in that situation. Obviously,
I met them at Hive Life this past year in Sevierville, Tennessee. I think we got to have dinner with him and his wife, and that was a lot of fun to see the video that you guys put together. They're kind of having a rough time at the moment, though, Bruce.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that
out there
up.
in the desert.
Wanted to bring that up. You know, he lives in a place called Goshen, Utah. It's about 30 minutes south of Provo, which is where Brigham Young University is, which is where I went to college. And by the way, if there's anybody on here from that area that comment on the video, I got quite a few comments from Utah, and that was pretty cool. I'm trying to extend my footprint a little bit out west, and it was neat to see folks saying, hey, I recognize this, or I recognize that, or I live just off that freeway, or you drove right by my house type of stuff. So that was kind of cool. But Jonathan and his wife, Heather, are just great people. They got 4 kids, and they're doing a great job. If you watch the video, hopefully if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's titled Utah Bees on my YouTube channel, but just great people. He's doing a lot of good stuff with his bees, and they're basically, the area they're in is like a desert. There's not a lot of rain out there. It's really dry, and they've been having a big drought all across the west. I guess Utah is no exception. And I guess a couple of days ago, they had a huge, unusual rainstorm come through, and it flooded their basement. If you go on Facebook under Heather and Jonathan Maclee, that's spelled Maclee, you can see what's going on there. And basically just flooded their basement. There's going to be a lot of money and time and effort and headache to get that fixed. Of course, when you live in a desert, I guess I just don't know that you can get, flood insurance. So,
And in the basement,
they have to figure out how to come out of that with pockets. So there is if you go on their Facebook page, Heather and Jonathan Maclee, Maclee, once again, I think there's a GoFundMe set up there for them. If you want to do that, just go check it out. Maybe just see what you think. There are pictures and video of that water just pouring in through the window into the basement, and I felt bad for them. Good folks that could just maybe use a little help if you feel like you want to do that. I'm not, it's just completely up to you to do that if you'd like. Maybe reach out to them, see what you can do to help. So, but we had a great time, and Jonathan, he's got lofty goals and dreams, and he is really doing a good job feeding his bees, treating his bees. His bees are just healthy and beautiful and doing great. He's got 67 colonies right there in his front yard. The furthest one away is probably about maybe 20 yards from his front door. So maybe 25. So they're right there in the front yard. But he has some things set up to be able to put them out in some land around there as he continues to grow. So it's pretty cool to go out there and see what he's doing.
It's always fun to see how people keep bees in different parts of the country. And then when you have something that is literally a desert, we take a lot of things for granted. But I can't even imagine the kind of how tough it must be out there, how dialed in you have to be into your operation. There's not a lot of room for error, I wouldn't think, out there.
There are some flowers that bloom, but there's alfalfa in that area. And so, alfalfa is a pretty good honey crop, I think, if they let it grow to where it blooms. And so he said, a couple of times a year for a couple of weeks, they get a pretty good flow off the alfalfa if the farmers let it bloom long enough. And that's really, I think, the only time they get a strong flow, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's kind of a battle. I mean, they've got to have big, strong, healthy colonies that take advantage of that nectar flow to the max when it's coming in. And so this is pretty tricky, I think, for him to try to really make honey. I think he's really more interested in kind of growing his operation, maybe doing some pollination services, and maybe, I don't know if he's going to sell bees and queens in the future or what he wants to do, but that's kind of where he's at now. He's building his own equipment. He's got all kinds of stuff there he's working on, and he's just being really diligent. And he talked about his plans for mites, how he's going to treat for the mites. He talked about his plans for expansion and just talked a lot about the genetics and the local beekeeping environment there in Utah. And as we all know, they're on this live chat, it's you have your own almost community everywhere you are, and everyone, kind of does things their own way, but yet you can pull together. And it's kind of cool to see how that works. We have a big community with all of us on here throughout the world, actually. And then we have our own local groups so we can get together and we can learn from each other. And so hopefully through that video, Jonathan can even network with some other folks that live out there, because there were some that reached out to me, and he may have already, I'm not sure, they may have already touched base with a couple of folks that live there. One guy lives up in the Salt Lake area, but he's got a family farm there in those sour cherry, I think they're called, trees on the way down there. If you watch the video, he's got some bees right there on his parents' land, which is probably 10 or 15 minutes from Jonathan's house. And so I hope that they'll be able to get together and network a little bit and kind of get together and talk bees a little bit. Got home, we got home last Thursday night, and I went out. All I've done is I've kind of just peeked in a little bit, tried to maybe do a little mite treatment type stuff, possibly. Just kind of mostly just peeked in on those queens is mainly what I've done. Put a little food on some of them, but haven't had a chance to really go through any hives significantly yet. Just haven't had it, but I'm going to get on it this weekend. We're going to see what we got. That's pretty much what's going on.
That was a fun video. I love what you did with the intro, with the music and your daughter and just cruising in the car and getting there. I love that. That was great.
Yeah.
That was a good video.
It's a beautiful country out there. I don't think people can realize the power of those mountains, how powerful they are, unless you're there and you see it personally. It's really, really just
majestic.
It's just amazing. You can get up in some great, big, huge, tall Rocky Mountains within about that freeway I was going down, that interstate. 10 minutes, you're up in the mountains off of that freeway. It's just like up in the just canyons of mountains and big rocky, so the Wasatch Front is what it's called, but there's big rocky, just jagged rugged mountains just right there within 10, at the most 15 minutes, and you enter those canyons going up there. So it's pretty cool. Sundance is right there, if you've ever heard of Sundance. A lot of the famous ski resorts are up behind some of those mountains, and it's pretty neat stuff. It's beautiful country out there.
Brian, you've been doing some traveling too, and you got a brand new video out to show for it. What's new with you?
I do. I was on the road last week in Virginia, and I stopped at the Beehive homestead. He watches us, and gosh, I think we both have watched each other's videos for probably 2 years or so. So where I was at in Virginia, I was 55 minutes, maybe, hour away from his place. So I stopped and had dinner with his family and spent the evening just sitting out there staring at the bugs on the outside of the box. So, but yeah, just enjoyed a visit, and it got dark, so we had to go back inside, and I think I ended up sitting and chatting until, oh my gosh, I think it was probably 12:30 at night. And then I had that 55-minute drive back to the hotel and had to be up at 6 something to go to work in the morning. So, but it was okay. So yeah, it was just good fun. I mean, got to meet somebody that I've talked to on here for a couple years. So, it's just that community. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun. A lot of fun. So, and then it was funny. Then when I'm driving up through Ohio, I stop at, let me see. See, it's been so long, I don't even remember how to point. I stopped over, I had to get some boxes from you, and I left also with one of their Pepto Pink queens. So this is actually the latest that I've ever made a split. So I got that all set up. I got my double nukes. All of that equipment is pulled and scraped and cleaned and in the honey house. That way it's ready for in the spring. I'm already looking at my 2023 season, get equipment kind of set up so that, when I come out of the winter and go into the spring, I have that equipment ready. But yeah, it's just treatments. And I think, I hate to say it, but I'm already looking at what am I going to do in the fall, And
don't
not
get
even
bored. You can come down to Zanesville. We'll put you to work.
Yeah, I know, but it's not even like, what am I going to do in the fall? It's what am I going to do to get those hives moving into the winter? It's August and I'm already thinking about the winter time. So, but not a bad thing, So, yeah. What do you got going on there, Greg?
Well, we've been having fun. Kind of, we're kind of at the that time of the year where, just to be completely honest, every year I kind of get this way. Every year towards the very end, you're just going so hard, so fast for so long. You're staring out burnout. You feel like you're really getting burned out. You're really getting tired. You're getting exhausted. Sometimes you'll hear that little sneaky voice on the one shoulder that's telling you just to quit. Don't finish strong. You've worked hard enough. And then the other voice comes up and says, "You're almost there. Just keep at it. Finish strong. Do what needs to get done." And that's kind of what we've been doing. We've been getting the queen yard kind of broke down. We've got a comment here, Mark Bender. That was awesome. Mark came out to pick up some supplies and he needed a queen, so I took Mark on a U-pick queen experience. So
nice.
Yeah, I took him out to the queen yard there, and we had a good time talking and just picking out a queen. And I think it's fun to be able to take folks exactly where their queens come from. They can take a look and then kind of have that connection to know that when we're standing there and the red-tailed hawks are screeching and the birds are flying and everything is going on in our environment there, like that's where the bees come from. That's a piece of our farm that they're taking home to their apiary, and I think that's pretty cool. So we've been busy just kind of getting the queen yard kind of broke down. Really, we're getting after we're pulling the last queens, where we run our queen boxes and like 5-frame mediums, some 5-frame deeps, and some 3-way boxes. And so as we are pulling the last queens out of those single boxes, those queens are getting shipped, and then those resources are getting broke down and just added and compiled on the things. So then I'll eventually get everything that's queenless just kind of stacked up, all queenless together, consolidated, and then and I just put our last round of grafts on. I'll come through and then add my queen cells to all those, give everything a fresh queen. It'll give me time to put a treatment on, get some bucket feeders on. That's just kind of our routine for the resources for queens and things. But now it's the time of the year where we're actually dialing in and focusing all of our last splits, which Brian, you mentioned you made here in August, and that's one of the things I think that we do that we're a little bit contrary, not intentionally, but one of the ways that we have found that works really good for us is to make splits in August, September, even October, if we need to. But we're not talking about making 1 or 2 frame splits. We're making downsizing splits where we'll take colonies that are in doubles or triples and then just kind of break them down into singles, maybe like something back here, and then make sure they're queen right, and then put a little feed on them so we can go into the wintertime in like a single or a story and a half. And that seems to be a pretty solid plan for us in Ohio. So it's also a good way to kind of go into the winter with some numbers just in case. It seems to work out pretty good. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is just kind of getting everything broke down, get everything balanced, get everything, all the last final splits, get everything queen right. And then as soon as we get everything queen right and then back into its winter configuration, I hate to say it, but then that's when the work really begins. That's when all of the behind the scenes, the building, the logistics, the shop, the farm, all those things that need to really get going too, even before the first snowfall. So it's never, it's never ending. But I just wanted to throw it out there. Folks, if you're trying to dig in there and you're trying to push hard, you're trying to grow your bee business, you're not alone if you're feeling the burnout, if you're feeling the exhaustion, if you sometimes, are feeling like you just want to quit, hang in there. I just, posted on Facebook earlier this week. We put our last grafts in, and something in my heart said just to put that last graft, use your lighthouse hive as a cell builder. So it was the way I had Ricky build that is I was able to take the queen in a couple frames and move that over to one side and its own, making 14 frames queenless. I let them go for 24 hours. I added a frame feeder to them, and then I dropped my grafted cells in there, and then used that lighthouse hive as a cell builder. And it was pretty interesting as I did it how I usually do it all year long, with a different type of a queenless starter, queen right finisher. And this late in the year, it is just a little bit finicky, and they really didn't want to make a lot of cells. However, the lighthouse hive showed me something that using that horizontal hive as a cell builder, they're doing a lot better drawing cells than the methods and configurations that I've used all year long. So something, and just, that you get that little voice, little tug in the heart to do something, you just do it. And I'm feeling kind of wore out and frustrated. I no sooner closed the lid on that horizontal hive and I look up, and I kid you not, there was just the most beautiful rainbow I've ever seen at the farm. It was just kind of like a little reminder to hang in there. Don't give up. You're on the right track. So that was pretty cool. Sometimes I think if you're in a place where you're ready to listen, I think you can hear. But so that's kind of what we've been up to. And
I have a question for you.
Yeah, buddy.
What do you think that that top bar hive would do?
Oh my gosh. I have to show that top bar hive to just about everybody. Now, if you're new to this whole thing, the top bar hive is different from our horizontal hive. The horizontal hive is the lighthouse hive that Ricky Rourke at Horizontal Bees built for us. The top bar hive is just what it sounds like. It is just a top bar hive, and that thing was better served as a lawn ornament for the last 10 years than it has been for raising bees, except for this year. And this year, we threw a package at it, and you can check out the whole saga on the Castle Hives YouTube channel. Brian's did a real good job of kind of capturing the install and the progress. And I kid you not, Brian, I think that thing is up to, I think it's 16 frames, 18 frames.
I counted it. Yeah, I counted it. Bruce, when I stopped real quick last Thursday, I went and there's a nice observation window on the front of it. So I lowered that thing down and literally it is clear over. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
It's a beautiful, even if it's just I have no idea what's the wintering strategy with something like that, man. It's hard for a lot of folks to probably see because they only see certain parts of the farm in the video, but we have an old bank barn that was built in 1901, hand carved, hand hewn wood pegs. And then, probably in the 1940s, 1950s, they put a big drive-through hayloft lean-to on the one side. I'm thinking about overwintering like the top bar and a lot of the if anything left in 5-frame singles or 5/5s, I'm thinking about actually bringing them into that drive-through where they're at least out of the rain and the snow and a little bit of a windbreak, because I can get right behind them, I can work them, I can check in on them. But I'm thinking maybe I'll get down in there. But guys, this is here in Ohio. I think I might be the very first one to bring this to your attention, Brian and Bruce. But today, as we were pulling the last of the queens, actually, is he on here? If there was ever a award that could go to somebody for getting the last of the shipped queens of the year, can you guys guess who in this audience received the last of our Appalachian mutt queens to get shipped for the year? I'm gonna give you a hint. You might be seeing him. You might be seeing Brian. You might be seeing him in the very near future. And Ricky Rourke might also be there.
Oh, was it Jason?
Oh, Jason.
Yeah, Jason. Yep. Sent some queens out to Jason today, and those were the last ones to get shipped out. The very last order to get shipped out. I got a couple pickups and things like that. Now we're just making queens, or everything left is for us. I've got some for Dan, just to kind of build back. But
you have some for who?
That's pretty cool. Old DJ Barracuda.
Okay, all right.
We need the echo feature on here when you say
DJ
that.
Like Barracuda.
I know.
Yeah. Speaking of old DJ, I see he's on here, Dan Bochris, and he's speaking in some kind of lizard people language. But it's okay, DJ. We ain't judging. Dan and I have been busy on the Contrary Beekeeper Show podcast, getting a lot of new episodes out. We just had a brand new one come out earlier this week. I've got a pretty fiery. We got one coming up here that I think it could ruffle some feathers, but in a good way.
That's okay.
So it's not something that we do intentionally, but when you get me and Dan, you get us working all day long, working bees, building equipment, and then we finally say, hey, let's record something. And it's like 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you're tired and you're exhausted. There's not a lot of filters left. And you just, boom, you just kind of put it out there. But that's us, an honest look at 2 Ohio beekeepers. Of course, Dan is a honey producer. We produce nukes and queens. So when we have these conversations, we're sharing our experiences in Ohio, kind of raising bees and growing our businesses. No frills. It is what it is. It's just sharing the trials and tribulations of a couple Ohio beekeepers. So I hope you guys enjoy that. That's the Contrary Beekeeper Show podcast, available at all the podcast platforms. We'll be there also at Hive Live Conference coming up in January. That's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of us all together. I think we're going to have like an entire wing of the entire place. There's just going to be nothing but all of our friends and pals. So that's going to be pretty cool.
That is going to be awesome. I look forward to that.
So what do you guys, like I said, it's fall. the big early announcement that I don't think anyone's quite heard yet either. There it is, the Country Beekeeper Show. Is I was out kind of breaking down the mating boxes and getting the queens out. And can you guys guess what I smelled? Just a very, very, very light hint.
Dirty socks.
That's it. I just started to get just a very, I smelled it. And then, of course, like a dummy, the first time I smell it, there's open nectar coming in. And so what do? I grab the frame and go to smell it. I got a veil on. Like, what? Come on. That's just rookie league mistakes there. But, and then, of course, I can't smell it. I did. Ridiculous, because I've been guilty of not wearing a veil most of the time. And so I just went straight up in there. And no, man, that was... But then I couldn't smell it. The weird thing is I really can't smell out of my nose a whole lot. So I'm not sure.
Wow.
But what is in flow right now is we have the false goldenrod is on. We have the ironweed is on, hot and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, white clover is on, several different varieties of Queen Anne's lace. The bird's foot is it came on. It's kind of intermittent here and there. And then we got another flush of chicory is on, I noticed today. The white clover is popped after the rain. And so the bees are just, when you walk out on the ridge and go all the way down, it's just all you can hear is a sea of bees on the white clover. It's a carpet, a white clover for about a 3/4 of a mile ridge. So that's pretty cool. So that's what's going on in East Central Ohio is we are in that late summer transition phase where we're getting ready to get into that fall flow. I don't think we're in the fall flow yet, not in East Central Ohio, but we're flirting with it. And so we're thinking about putting our last, pre-fall treatments on. So maybe we can collect some of that goldenrod honey. And so we've got treatments. So we got splits. We've got treatments. We're prepping for the fall flow, and then we've been getting ready since July for wintertime. That's kind of the little snapshot. Clear up here in East Central Ohio. Bruce, what is where are you at in your season overall right now?
Well, down here, I think it's interesting when you think about the country, and I'm not all that familiar with what goes on up north, but from watching videos, it seems like our season is both earlier and later in a lot of ways. Like we'll get warmer earlier, and then we get into that honey sooner. And then in the summer, it seems like the flow is a little bit later. Like you guys are already starting to see some goldenrod up there. We're not really seeing that yet. It's not too far away. I saw Mike Barry said on here, it'll be October. I think we usually see some goldenrod here, really here coming up pretty soon, but it's October is when you see it just everywhere. We also have, I think, Mike can probably confirm ragweed. People love that for allergies. It's everywhere down here. I think it's at the same time, or aster kind of blooms at the same time as well. But right now we got a lot of cotton blooming all over the place, and that's keeping the bees. I hope it's keeping them happy. I haven't been in them enough to really tell. You know how they were a couple of weeks ago. They weren't very happy, but maybe they're doing a little better now. If my bees happen to be close to the cotton, which a lot of them are. And so that's kind of where we're at. As far as my management, I got to get them and see what I'm doing. I do believe I have some of the older queens that are beginning to crash. I've noticed some dead outs that are happening, and that happens every year to me late summer. I just don't know really how to. The problem is right now, queen availability is fizzling out. It's going down right when I probably should be starting to be requeening some of these, because you don't see them fade. A lot of times they don't fade. It doesn't seem like, at least in my case, until right now. And right now it's tough to find queens, but I haven't been in them enough to really see if that's what's going on or why I'm losing a few. Mm-hmm. So right now what I'm doing is I'm doing some mite treatments. For those of you who saw, I put, I'm using Apivar / Amatraz type products in my hives. You saw the video where I put Apivar strips in the hives down in Slocum, and I had a pretty high mite count in some of my colonies, and but hopefully that's going to be coming down quickly. I'm going to assess those when I'm done, here in a couple of weeks. And if I still have issues, I may try some Apigard. I've got to get the mites down. I think that is part of my problem. Some of my bee yards are worse than others. Just got to get it figured out. Thought it was interesting. Just kind of a little side note here. I see Gus on here. Just just want to mention, I see Richard, so many people on here that I know and recognize that I never would have known. As I mentioned, I think before when you were down here, Greg, you know, so many people, everybody at that, except for my wife, every single person at that dinner, I didn't know before I got into bees, and we had 18 people there, could have had more. And it's just so much fun to see folks on here that I recognize that I've met because of this community. But so I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, I've been doing bees now for 9 years. I'm just starting to kind of figure out principles, and now application of those principles is what I'm trying to figure out how to do. And I think it's something you just keep growing. It's just, to me, I've got to figure out how to be more efficient to be able to get it all done. And it's just tough with my schedule. I know I've got some local guys here, some friends that are, one guy, Tyler's got, I think, around 1,000 colonies, and he's he works full time. I don't know how he does it. And of course, Davis has 350 or 400 colonies and a young family, and he manages that. And I've got about 100, probably down to about 140 now. I've lost a few, and I just can't figure out how to stay on top of it. So I don't know what my problem is, but maybe I'm just too old. Maybe I'm getting too old to do this and be efficient at it. I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm at as far as with the actual bees. You know, it's the same thing everywhere in the country. We're getting ready for winter. We got to get these bees clean of mites, so the next generation of bees are the winter bees. And even though we do have some brood throughout the winter down here, you still got to have, I think you're still got to have those winter bees that are pretty strong, because it's a tough time as it gets a little colder here, and as you know, there's not much coming in. You know, it's just, it does slow down here. And so we got to get those bees built up and get them strong and get the mites out of the colonies. Just get rid of those mites.
Did you say cold?
I said by our standards. I understand. We don't have cold like you guys have cold, but,
Okay.
I don't know. Did I mention, I mentioned Gus earlier. One thing about this community, what my point was going to be, is that he actually just texted me out of the blue today and said, "Hey, how are things going down there?" And I thought that was so cool. You know, Gus Mitchell would just text me and message me. And we had a little texting conversation back and forth, talked about our bees. And Gus, I know you're on here. You were just a few minutes ago. I appreciate you doing that. That means a lot to me. A couple of, and we may talk about this a little bit later, but a couple of things that are pretty cool going on in my world. You know, I got a lot of honey this year. By my standards, a lot of honey. And so trying to figure out how to get rid of it. And I've actually got a website that is, we're going to start selling honey online, and that's really close to going live here pretty soon. And we have a friend on here that has actually helped me through that process, because I had no clue what to do. Rob from Laura Bees helped me with that. He's a good friend, and it kind of, he just helped me with it, and I didn't know how to do all that. And so we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. And so soon you'll be able to get, there it is. It says store opening late August. So it's not open yet. We're not done with it yet, but we're getting close. And so pretty cool. It's going to be fun. But that's what I'm kind of stressed out. I'm trying to do so many things that it just, I'm also working on trying to get, you know, a kind of, you know, utilize maybe the logo I've had for a while, and maybe get a new logo that's a little more recognized. Just some different things I'm trying to do. So besides just the beekeeping, trying to kind of get a little more of a business off the ground as well, besides just the keeping the bees and selling the honey locally. I'm trying to figure out how to grow a little bit, you know, get a bigger footprint out there somehow. So,
hey, you know,
I'm out. You
were mentioning honey there. I have to pull something up, because she's actually in here, and Frank and Deborah Lane. Deborah said that they watch us on their, what is it, like 65-inch TV?
I saw that comment.
And
I just hope I don't hurt their eyes when they look at me.
I got this from them. Let me pull. There we go. I got to share something else. I got to share a picture, and then I'm going to read what. Look at that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow. It's got a swarm. Is that a swarm hanging out behind it there? Or is that on the outside of a box? I see that.
It's just the outside of a box. But it says here, "Hi, we've been watching and listening to the Streamteam live chats and enjoying them so much. Started out with 5 hives about 5 years ago, and now between splits and swarms, we're at about 25. We had up to this year only removed a small amount of honey for our family. We wanted our hive to thrive through the PA mountain weather, leaving the honey for the bees." You know, it goes on for a little bit. To their surprise, they were able to harvest 360 pounds of honey which they believe is mostly tulip poplar. But yeah,
Wow.
she sent a couple pictures, and
That's cool.
let me bring up this other one real quick before we get going. But look at this one here too.
I love how
love
rosy that is. Look how beautiful that color is.
I love these pictures. So yeah,
Very cool.
Deborah, thanks for the pictures and that. So awesome. I love that. That's like a Fred Dunn quality right there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
One of the coolest things
Artistic.
was when we were traveling and seeing everybody, we did a lot of honey exchanges. So I've got honey from folks all over the place, not only in Tennessee and Alabama, but we stopped down or on the way back home and said hey to Bob Walker, and traded him a Pepto Queen for some honey. And what is so cool is we've put them on display at the shop here at the farm, and just all the different colors is just absolutely amazing. It is so cool to see all the different hues and the colors and the shades that kind of go on there. So that's I love. It's just it's sweet art. Literally. What's cool also is if you do want to get some honey, some Bruce's Bees honey, some Red Dog Ranch honey, in the future, some Castle Hives honey, and even some honey from our farm. We've got we have a little community shelf here at the farm at Nature's Image Farm in Zanesville, where we've put other people's honey on display, kind of on the spotlight there. And so if you're interested in picking up some Streamteam honey or some Contrary Beekeeper Show fellas, got some honey from Dan, you can stop by and see us. At least you can come check it out. It's so cool because now I've got, everybody in there. Some of the most newest additions. Got some from Mike Berry. I think Mike's on here.
It's Mike's honey.
There
right
it is.
There.
Yep. We've got the Hail Hives in there. We've got Mike Berry, Half Tracks honey. The list goes on and on. It's maybe I'll put a video out kind of showing all that.
I have never gotten any of. I didn't even believe that Mike Berry harvested honey. I think he probably is just. You can do a lot with editing, so
The old
He's got a lot of good
Silver Fox.
how-tos. You ought to check them out.
Until
I'm telling you.
I can actually taste some of Mike Berry's honey, I don't even think he harvests any. So
Here we go, Brian.
Brian's about to get slapped virtually there through the inner tubes there from Mike Berry.
you got somebody that talks me into buying equipment and showing off all this stuff, but doesn't want to tell anybody how to do it.
You have to visit to get some, Brian.
Oh, okay.
Well, if anyone has any questions that are, if you're hanging out with us this long and hearing us just rambling about bees, thank you. If you have any questions, shoot them in the comments there. I kind of admittedly dropped the ball, fellas, on putting the request out for video quotes. So I kind of I've been chasing my tail there. So I don't have any video questions on the email tonight, but I thought maybe it would be interesting to talk about what we're doing to kind of prepare for the fall time, and especially as we're kind of approaching winter, because we all might do something a little different depending on not only our location, but also our context and our goals. Yeah. Brian, you want to walk us through what you're doing up in Northeast Ohio to get ready for fall and winter?
Well, typically what I do is, I guess timing varies every year, but I guess my plan of what I do, it really doesn't change that much. I normally would get them through the fall flow. You're looking at the hives just to make sure they have enough stores. I run double deeps, so I like to see that, my deeps are just packed. I like them packed out with, stores. That way it'll get them through the winter. I have in prior years, I've always been drawn to the Vivaldi boards. This year I'm going to, as far as the flow and, if we feed before, if they need it, I'm going to use my Hive Alive products, but I've got the fondant. So I'm not going to put on my Vivaldi boards. I'm going to use the Hive Alive fondant on all my colonies. Prior years, I always wrapped my hives as well. I do not think I'm going to do that this year. I just, the more and more I think about it, I'm going to switch over to solid bottom boards. I have a couple that are screened, so I'm switching over some of my equipment, and I'm not going to insulate them. I'm not going to do the Vivaldi boards. I'm going to try it out, So, but that's normally, I'll get them through this fall flow. Judge as far as stores, and if they need it, feed them and just ride them into the winter. So hopefully, changing up equipment this year. I mean, this is 6 years into the beekeeping journey, hopefully changing things up a little bit doesn't really affect the outcome, what I see coming out of the winter. I don't think that it will, but who knows, I've been hitting them with my treatments. My washes showed on a couple of the colonies, it was just 1. So I know my mite count for this time of year, I was just beyond thrilled to see 1 mite, so feed them, I got my good queens, keeping the mites in check, and hopefully, if I come out of the winter next year then with 8, 9, colonies,
Be ready to go up to 30.
It'll be easy to stay at 10.
Brian, what do you think? A lot of these wintering techniques are more, I don't want to say controversial, but wintering techniques vary, and you'll hear different approaches, not only in Ohio, but across the country, including wrapping with tar paper, setting up windbreaks, putting on some foam surrounds, foam lids, using apple going in with surplus honeys. Do you think that those things are really the reason that colonies survive the wintertime?
We'll see. I'll just say we'll see. I mean, as far as mine, so I'll just tell everybody on here, like when I'm talking about Vivaldi boards and I'm talking about insulating, I used to do, the, the roofing paper, the black paper I put on them. I did all of these things because this is what I observed and I learned from watching, videos years ago. Learning more now and knowing about strong colonies and just, Jarrett and I, when I'm visiting his place, honeybees I say they're a master HVAC. They control that environment. And, when we're sitting there at his place, I did not even realize that there was a small opening in the front of one of his colonies. I just saw, you saw the huge mass of bees bearding out front. And I reached down with one of my little microphones because I wanted to get that humming sound. And I could feel this just steady. It was almost like somebody had a little teeny, those little fans like people wear when they're sitting outside. It's almost like somebody had one of those inside of that hive and you could just feel the air moving out of it. So I'm taking a step back and I'm going to switch over my bottom boards, but I'm going to let the honeybees really, I mean, when they're in trees, they don't have anybody go out and wrap those trees. So I'm just going to take a step back and let the honeybees be honeybees. So, and, I mean, if I'm managing those colonies like I think I am, I'm setting them up for success. That's my part, so we'll see, but there's so much. I mean, like you said, with the windbreaks and just everything else, my colonies where they're at I haven't really had to set up windbreaks just because where they're located at, they're somewhat protected. They're not out like yours are out, on the top of, a ridge and things like that. So you'll probably get different wind than what I do. So I've never really worried about that. But I could go on and on and on and on about.
Well, I think the thing is what I love about what I'm hearing you say is that you are flexible. You are not just stuck in a certain way, and you are entertaining, maybe trying something a little different way to see what works for you. Because sometimes if we actually are honest with ourselves and we look at the results in front of us, it's often hard to kind of sort through that to figure out, well, which one of these things that I think that I'm doing right is actually helping the bees overwinter. Which one of these things are maybe a net 1 or 2 or 3%, and which one of these things is actually hindering. And I think that can be different for us all. But I would say, Brian, at least in my neck of the woods, I'll just say this. I think that all of those approaches 100% work. I think the reason that they work is not because that the insulation is keeping them warm, not because the black tar paper is early warm-ups. I think all of these little things that we do or try to do to the colonies are just creating a slight buffer to the stressor that is air, temperature, moisture, things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, at least in the way that I look at my experience with bees, is all of these things are just buffers to a greater stressor inside of the colony, which is sick bees. If those bees are sick, then it doesn't matter which one of the 18 different buffers that you apply, colony, you're just going to barely limp them along. What's tricky about that is we've all been guilty of it. And I think the fancy word for it's confirmation bias. We've all been guilty of doing that one thing that we were going to try that year, and then our bees lived. And then now we're stuck and we're hung on to doing that one thing because we think that was actually the answer. And then we could have tried it the next year and it doesn't work. Or maybe that one thing does work. But I think and I think a lot of folks are getting on board with, if we can actually get these bees healthy without the viral loads before they're making winter bees, I'm not sure that you need any of those things or an awful lot of those things to actually get through the winter. I think all those things are just buffers to all those stressors. And so because of that, there's a lot of things that we don't do anymore. We don't wrap stuff. We don't insulate stuff. One thing that we definitely aren't doing anymore is we used to drill a 1-inch hole in the front and the back of every single box. The back had hardware cloth, kind of screened over that entrance. I'm not doing that anymore. I thought that it was doing a certain thing. But then when I used that FLIR camera in the wintertime to actually look at the colonies, no matter the wind orientation or the sun orientation, those colonies were always on the front side of the box away from where that back vent was. So to me, that was telling me, okay, that's too much ventilation and they're not able to propolize that up. So I stopped doing that. And lo and behold, the bees weren't dying because of moisture. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we got to be mindful and be able to look at our scenarios, look at our situations, and then try to, as independently as we possibly can and unbiased, look at all that information and then actually say, okay, this isn't working or we don't know, but don't get don't jump and cling on to all these things that are, gospel truth until we get a little bit more experience with it. I want Bruce and Brian, thank you both for the super chats. Though I saw those come through. Fuzzy World, thank you as well for those super chats. Those things, as you guys have heard us say before, those things, those super chats, you guys giving, thank you. It helps us do all the things that we're trying to do, not only on the farm or the apiary, but also all the behind the scenes stuff to run all this. So appreciate that. Thanks.
And we each have an apame colony. right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I see here Wayne's honeybees. The very last, the last 5 words there, let them seal it up. So what's funny is when I have been doing my OA treatments, because I'm hitting them, I think I'm going to probably end up getting 5 or 6 in. On my apame colonies, I've been going through that front disc, right? You got a hole there, spin it and open it. Wouldn't you know it, the other day when I went over there, I had heck of a time opening those buggers up. And in the part of the disc where you just have little small holes, I had one colony that, it was still on that ventilation, completely sealed over. They propolized the whole thing up. So they know. I mean, if they want that air, they wouldn't seal it up. So, like you said, they have those 1-inch holes, and they're on the opposite side. So they know, and that's kind of why I'm thinking, do I have to go out there and do I have to buy these sheets of insulation and spend an entire day cutting pieces that fit and doing this? Nope.
I think
we spent more time keeping the bees healthy. I think you need a lot less of those things. Bruce, what do you think about? I know it's different down south, but what do you think about those approaches?
It is. I'll tell you, if you've seen my videos, and Greg, you saw some of this firsthand, those nuke boxes I use that have the upper entrance on them, the old ones I did, and I still may do some lids like this. The bottoms and tops are interchangeable. You guys hear me okay? I can't hear you. Can you say something?
I was muted.
Okay. I'm like, what happened? It got quiet all of a sudden. So now we know where all the noise is coming from. It's coming from Brian's place. All right.
I got the windows open because there's a nice breeze.
It sounds like an yeah, it's not real loud. It just went totally silent. But anyway, so what happens, it's interesting because I do overwinter a fair number, it seems like, each year in those nuke boxes that have some of them have that upper entrance, some of them don't on the lid. And it's about, I think it's a little over 2 inches, maybe about 2.5, 2.25 inches. Those little gaps are like 3/4 inch by 2 plus or minus inches. And some of the colonies will propolize those jokers completely up. They just put like a shield right there so no air can get in. Some of them don't do that. So it's like, I think we spend so much time trying to figure out the next best thing, like trying to do all the things to protect our bees, trying to do all the things to all the little gadgets. We try to use all the different equipment and gadgets we can. Whereas I think you guys both hit it on the head, especially when you said, Greg, let's focus on the health of our bees. The whole hive life, I think kind of the 3 objectives with the hive life movement, so to speak, are great queens, dead mites, and proper nutrition. And if you have a good, strong, healthy colony going into wintertime, they're going to be able to maintain that cluster and keep the temperatures where they need to be and maintain the atmosphere in that hive where it needs to be. Now, I do understand in some places where it's like negative temperatures for weeks on end that you do have to do some things. I mean, some people, like Ian puts them inside. I mean, you got to do some things in those situations. But, for the most part, I think that the bees, can figure it out. I know the bees up north are hardy to cold typically. And down here, maybe not quite so much, but they figure it out. And so I just think that I kind of tend to agree where we need to focus more on the health of our bees. And it's not bad to go ahead and try to insulate them. Down here, you don't need to do that. You just don't need. People down here, sometimes they read the books and they insulate their hives. I'm like, you don't have to do that. It's never more than, we're never below freezing more than a day or 2 in a row. So you don't have to insulate your colonies, but people just read in a book and they try it. It's not going to hurt the colonies, but there's no real need to do that. But spend so much time trying to figure out the next trick, the next fancy piece of equipment, that we don't do always what we should for the health of our bees. As far as the apame goes, it's interesting, Brian. I don't know if you guys have noticed with the apames, those feeders that are on there, those jokers will propolize those, every little groove. Those feeders have little slits in them for the ventilation, I guess. Yep. And those jokers propolize it up. So if they seal them right up, and so it's kind of interesting. They also seal up where if you don't have food in there, they'll seal up where the little feeder comes down. You have to like get a hive to them, pry those things off if you want to adjust that little thing. And so they know what they want. They work on it. They figure it out. Each colony is a little bit different. So that was a great question, Greg. And I think that's super important for us and to realize that, and I've got a long ways to go. I mean, my bees are not they're not as healthy as I want them to be. I think they're healthier than usual, but I've still got a ways to go to get them where I want them. And there's a lot of factors to be looked at, but I think the three main things we talk about keep going back to. Cayman keeps going back to them, and we all try to emphasize this: great queens, dead mites, proper nutrition. And that's just, it's complicated, but it's simple all at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean that's spot
I think it's one of
on.
those things where.
Go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead, Brian. I got a lag on my side. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean that's so spot on, because what I've learned, and I mean, I could go back 2 years. I did not control my mites like I should have, so I lost colonies throughout the winter. I mean that's that one factor there, the proper nutrition. I don't know if the fluke size of my colonies this year is because every single one of my colonies got hive alive. So I'm going to continue with that. But, the proper nutrition, the great queens, I mean, moving forward, any bees that I get, I mean, they're typically, I'll make a drive, and see that fellow over there. Any other ones I think are probably only going to come from Jose. So it's those great genetics. And I mean, let the bees be bees. We could throw all this mechanical stuff, and I've seen videos. There's what a mechanical beehive out there, and there's this and that, and these gadgets and whatever there is. But the bees are bees. So yeah, I'm taking a step back as far as a lot of the stuff that I do in this winter, and we'll see if it works out. I think it will. I feel really good about the direction that I'm going with my colony. So, but we'll see.
I think a lot of folks are looking, and you guys have heard me say it before, so if I'm on repeat, I apologize, but I think a lot of folks are looking for shortcuts to being successful, and there aren't any. You might find a shortcut to finding success in a certain aspect of beekeeping, but you won't find a shortcut to being successful. And so a lot of folks think that they just need this next piece of equipment or this different kind of a treatment or a different type of approach altogether. And I say that because I've been there, I've done that. And you just kind of kick the can down the road. But it's not until you really dial in and focus on good quality genetics is absolutely massive. Making sure you're feeding the colonies is huge. It makes such a big difference when you are setting up the colonies for success, when they can actually do the work that they need to do, and we can keep those viral loads down. They just go and they go and they go. The reason I say that is I'm only speaking to my own experience, but you'll hear a lot of folks, and I have to say this. I don't have to say it. I want this. Yes, we raise queens, and we are very proud of our genetics, okay? But I'm going to be the first person to say that I do not have a super bee. Jose does not have a super bee. Sukobi does not have a super bee. All of these are great genetics that are definitely going to help. But let me tell you guys something. I've seen a packaged queen from Georgia in its first year see -5 in Ohio in a 5-frame medium box, uninsulated, unwrapped, nothing, make it. Now, how is that possible? That goes against everything that you'll ever hear about all the things that you're supposed to do, because it goes back to the single most important thing. They've got to be healthy bees. If you have healthy bees, you can get them through nearly any size configuration. When their health is compromised, then everything is stacked against them. And now you're talking about the entire kitchen sink at them, and they still not make it. Do I want to pretend that, yes, our bees are somehow more winter hardy and locally adapted and all these kind of things? Maybe. But I think what we are doing is we are year after year after year. The queens that are coming out of our yard are a genetic line that is withstanding us, our neglect, our weather, our viral loads, our beekeeping. And we're doing nothing but every single year doing better, breeding from the best, blending those with new stock. And what we find is now we're starting to get to a whole new threshold, a whole new level of what the bees are doing that's all well and good. But if those bees get absolutely devastated with viruses, guess what? None of that matters.
Right. Yep. Yep. I'm going to answer Hale Hive's question there. Do you see what he did? Put me right on the spot. Which is better,
Oh,
Greg or Jose's? I will say this. I still have some of Greg's queens from last year. 2 of my colonies, I still have those queens. Those buggers lay up double deeps, and they've had multiple supers on them. So how can I say, well, Greg's queens are horrible? Those things, the colony at the farm, that was one of Greg's. That was my strongest colony this year. It had 4 supers on it. So it's like, I mean, you know, Jose's, this is the first year I've had them. They have built up very nice. They are, you know, I got them, second week of May. They've filled out 2 deeps. I've even harvested honey. But I will say this, and Greg, I'm sure he would say, yep, that is true. This has been an exceptionally odd year in Ohio for the flow. Every little thing that you would want to go correct every year, as far as the flow and things like that, has more or less, you know, fallen into place. So we'll see. Now, moving into next year, how those colonies do, ask me next year. So, because I know how Greg's queens do. That's why I go down the street and I get them from him.
the winner is the separator. The winner, I think, does. There are certain things that I think can happen, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, when you're talking about supporting somebody who's making queens, no matter if it's Jose, if it's us, or if there's a lot of other great queen breeders out there, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, when you have a choice that you want to bring genetics or something different, in some diversity into your apiary, onto your farm, you know, yes, the genetics matter, and yes, how we raise queens matter, but also know, you know, that you're voting with your wallet. You're actually supporting families. You're supporting small business. That's a big deal. I know I can't speak for Jose, but I would only assume they absolutely appreciate every single queen order that they get. And they handle each one with love and with care, just like we do. You know, every queen that leaves our farm, it's a little piece of our farm. It's a little piece of our family's heritage, our future legacy that leaves our farm and goes to yours. That's something special. Is every single queen that's bred in the United States under all circumstances exactly like that? You know what? That's not even for me to say. All I can do is speak to what we're doing, what our goals are. And if that has value for folks, then we're happy to work with you and you know, ship you out some queens. But you know, we keep going back to it. Yes, does it matter? Sure. Some of these new lines that we're running that we've crossed, they're going to behave a little different. They're going to brood down. They're going to idle until the weather is right, and then they're going to explode. They're not going to be prematurely out there raising brood when it's too cold. They're not going to eat themselves out of house and home. They're kind of like the Dave Ramsey of queen bees, where they're living within their means. They're doing all the things that need to be done decently and in order. That's a big deal. But if you don't keep the viral loads down on bees in general, you're setting yourself up and your investments up for failure.
Yeah. You know, I saw another thing here from Hale Hives. This is almost next year. I mean, I think this could be the name. Because like right now it's the Pepto Pink or whatever. Look at this. Pepto
Pipers. It's funny because every queen for the last, how long has that been now, Bruce? 3 weeks or so. I haven't even used a yellow marking pen. I'm burning up the pink pens. Every queen now that's caged and shipped is pink. Everyone wants a piece of that Pepto Pink, which I think is cool. And you know what? You know, that pink is really nice to actually see. I don't know why pink. Pink is worst color, I think, is yellow. Yellow is probably the worst color. I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of yellow in the colonies because it doesn't stick out quite enough. But you put a Pepto Pink queen in there, even if you got trouble seeing, boy, you can see that girl running around through there.
My video, I have a video tomorrow that was from, switching out the equipment and installing the Pepto Pink queen. And then I show her walking on a frame.
Just pops.
I mean, it's just like, boom.
Yeah.
That queen is blinged out.
It's nice on camera too. If you are trying to take a little video or get a photo, you absolutely can kind of spot them.
Yep.
Super easy. There was a question here. Swamp Hill Farm Apiary, Dan Greg. How do we guarantee we get some queens next year? I would say, there's no Billy Mays ShamWow sales pitch on that. When we get closer to about Thanksgiving, we start to open up all the orders for packages, nukes, and queens. So it took us a very long time to finally get through all the pre-orders this year, where we had very little local availability. So if you are interested in queens, I would encourage you to just stay tuned to the YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and our website, naturesimagefarm.com, to see when they're available. If you go to our website, you can go down to the very bottom, go to that subscribe to the mailing list, and we let all of our folks know there, I think, first. And then we just, we're small scale. We're not raising, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 queens a year. We're very, very small scale. Our hands are touching every single box, every frame, every queen, every cage, every trip to UPS. And so we can't raise that many. But if what we do, if you're interested in that and you want a little piece of our farm to yours, definitely just stay tuned here real soon. We're going to start to open up those opportunities.
Yeah, I
So you guys
was
see any
just looking at
questions
the
on
pictures
there?
on my. There have been a few back a little ways.
I've got a little delay here in this new setup. I'm probably on like a 5 or 7 second delay. So
yeah, Gus.
Actually,
A couple people talking about beans and rice on there.
Beans and rice, rice and beans.
Dave Ramsey, that's right. Here's a question. Do you feed them all the way through the winter, Greg, from Beehive Homestead? I don't know if you can see that one.
So in our neck of the woods, context is key. You've heard me say that before. We're setting our colonies up for rapid splits in the springtime. So our goals are going to be maybe just a little bit different. One thing that we do that's a little bit different. Look at that Pepto Pink. Isn't that nice? Yes. Tell you, even off some of these our jet black breeder queens. I mean, they are just, you've seen them at Hive Life. You see it on our banners and stuff. There's a little photo of a purple dot black queen, and she is just, I love her to pieces. What's interesting is watch sometimes as the year unfolds, how her daughters kind of change too. Now we're getting into about 2 different color schemes. We're getting also very jet black or very dark root beer tiger stripe, which is kind of that mottled dark into that really reddish brown. And then we get tiger stripes with polka dots. And it is just super cool. Like that photo you just sent there, Brian, to see that horizontal black stripe and then the vertical dots up the abdomen. Man, I love that. We had one of our queen mothers. If anyone ordered queens from us and you're getting that striped and polka dot, it's actually a pretty neat little story. We years ago, it's probably been 4 or 5 years ago, we had a swarm move into one of our boxes, and turns out it came out of a bee tree that we had rescued. brought it back to the farm, set it up. Well, it swarmed out of there and then moved into a box over at the bee yard that was at the house at that time. And she was just a gorgeous queen, absolutely beautiful. She cruised through the wintertime, and then her daughters cruised through the wintertime. And so we started grafting off of her and got all these daughters. And she's kind of been the backbone of our Ohio line. Off, who knows what variety of mutt she actually is. But she did so well, and her daughters were so beautiful. But more importantly, her daughters, one thing that if you've ever bred queens, you'll know, it's one thing to be able to make one good daughter off a queen or two. The trick is having a good quality genetics that you can actually have uniform daughters that across the board have a lot of the same similarities. Well, that's what we've seen off this one queen. So now all these years later, we'll see these lines with polka dots. And she was the first queen mother I'd ever seen that had done that. So earlier this year, one of our really, really hardy tower hives that overwintered in a honey production yard, that's exactly what she was, striped and polka dotted. And so all the drones that she is making and grafting off of her, we seem to be just, anyways, I'm geeking out. I love that kind of stuff. What do we do about, the question was as far as feeding and when and why. This setup right here, what you see here is about what we gauge for, at least for what we're doing. It'll be a single 10 frame deep or a story and a half with these New World Carney with this Caucasian expression blended to our Ohio mutt line. What we see is that colonies, they downsize kind of on their own. And then they actually kind of like to be 3 to 5 frames all winter long in one 10 frame single. And then where that would almost freak you out and you get scared, just when you think that colony is not going to do nothing, you crack the lid and now that 10 frame single is absolutely full. And then you add the next box and they just ramp up and they just go and they go and they go. And then they start to kind of brood back down late summer, early fall, which is pretty handy. So they're a little bit more consistent. What that means for us, all these splits, and that I know I only need a story and a half to get through winter. I know I only need a 5 frame single medium to get through the winter, but there's not enough meat left on the bone coming out of the spring to do a whole lot with a colony that small. We're using these bucket feeders that you see here, and we're using ProSweet. I only use ProSweet. I don't mix sugar all year long. There's no dry sugar being mixed. If you do, I'm not saying it's a bad choice or what I'm doing is better. I don't have the time or the labor to mix up dry granulated sugar for as much feed that we need. So we go through probably 4 to 5 totes of ProSweet all year long, maybe 2 to 3 on average. And what we do is that's what we're using to have our bees draw comb in the spring. They use that as they brood up, and then they use that in the fall to kind of store any extra. And I think the trick is with the bucket feeders, I think it's giving that stimulative effect where there's always a nectar kind of pumping through the colony. And I think that's a big deal. What that means going into the fall time, like right now, is as we make any kind of downsizing splits or we're beefing any colonies up, I can simply just throw a bucket feeder on top of there, have them fill out. I can just keep adding bucket feeders if I want, but it's not going at a rate that's too hot and heavy. So when I want these queens to continue brooding throughout this late summer and into the early fall, having that trickle effect from the bucket feeder seems to really help. What's nice about that, matter of fact, when we were down at Hive Life Conference last year, right before we left, you know what we did? We went on all the colonies and we put bucket feeders on every single one in January. Now that sounds absolutely ludicrous to most folks, but when you're using something like a 3-to-1, like a ProSweet, the thing about these buckets have an on-off switch. That's on, you flip the bucket over, and that's off. It's that simple. On, off, on, off. So when we have days, at least here in Ohio, when we're getting 48 to let's say 55 degrees during the day, if those colonies are getting a little lean, hey, I can just flip that bucket over. They can draw some of that. They'll get that day-to-day carbohydrates. They're probably not going to store any of that, but they're getting enough carbohydrates through those days to help see them through. Mm-hmm. In the past, we've also used some dry sugar, using some ventilated shims. Um, I'm not sure how long that makes sense after how many colonies that you have on doing all that. But these are all just kind of um, little tiny things that we do that seems to really just help. What some folks will call, feeding in the wintertime, emergency feeding. I like to consider cheap insurance feeding. It's just a way that I can keep feed on these colonies, kind of keep them moving forward. So Jeff Thomas, sorry, I got a lag here, guys, and my screen keeps freezing up there. How many holes in your buckets to trickle feed? Let me show you.
He's turning into Fred Dunn.
Did I just pull a Fred Dunn? If you've never seen one of these bucket feeders, they are very simple. When we first put out that video years ago, we were using gasket style lids, and turns out you don't need the gaskets at all. Standard lids work great. And the nice thing about that is you can actually pull them off to clean the bucket, which you really can't do with the gasket lids. The trick, though, is, I don't know if you guys, this is ridiculous to try to maybe show, that the trick is how many holes that you put inside here. And I think Bob does up to 8 holes sometimes. I do 3 holes is about the perfect number for me. 3 holes if I'm installing a package, if I'm growing out a nuke, or if I'm feeding something like right here. 3 holes seems to be the magic number for Pro Suite. If you're going to run, a thin syrup, you might want to start with 2 holes, just like the concept with the quart jar feeders. You take a T50 staple, you poke it through, you pull it out, it gives you 2 little holes to kind of keep that feed kind of percolating. These buckets work on the same concept. They work on vacuum. So you want to make sure that you only fill these up, about 7/8 of the way, and then flip them over. It catches the vacuum. And then that feed percolates through the holes, and the bees can come up through like a migratory lid with a hole cut out, or an inner cover. They can come right up to that plug. They can feed. They can get what they need. And then if you decide, hey, I really want to lay the feed to them, just really hard and fast. Well, the cool thing with these plugs that we have on our website is you just drill them out. You just put more holes in those plugs, and you can totally adjust them. So whether it's a 1-frame split or triples, you can tune these plugs to suit whatever need that you have. I don't want to spend all night talking about this, but if you want more, we have a really old video on our YouTube channel, 1-gallon bucket feeder. If you're interested in learning more about these two, you can go to our website at naturesimagefarm.com. Check out those plugs. There's been a couple things growing a bee yard that were absolutely game changers, and switching to bucket feeders was definitely one of them. Bruce, what are you doing down there to kind of make sure you are where you need to be come wintertime? And what time of year do you really consider winter down in Alabama? And what kind of temperature does that look like?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I am still wearing shorts right now, but it does get a little chilly. I'll just gonna say chilly. I don't know about really cold. For it to be really cold down here is rare by your standards, for sure. I mean, but
you see what I got right there? It's my little violin. I'm playing it for Bruce.
That's a very little violin. That's a tiny little violin. But no, I've never complained about our mild temperatures, but it's tricky because some years it does get, colder than others. Some years it's almost, you're never more than a day or two from a 70-degree day some winters. And so it's very mild. Sometimes on Christmas it'll be 60 or 70 degrees, and sometimes it's, 25 degrees. It varies every year. And so, but the question, I guess, was how do we prepare for winter? How do we know when winter's here, and how do we kind of get ready? I still am trying to fine tune the feeding thing, to figure all that out. I just get so crazy in the spring, and I split so much, and I put so much effort into the honey that I feel like I'm playing catch up. Once the honey's off, I feel like I'm playing catch up the whole time. And so what I typically do, and it's worked for me the last couple of years, is I do a lot of, I can play the same violin for you, Brian, if only you come on down. But anyway, I do a lot of open feeding. I've done some of the bucket feeding. I've done some of the quart jar feeding. I've never really done, the internal feeders, the frame feeders. I just kind of try to, I'm in survival mode. Like for me, it's a time thing. I fill my tote up with the sugar water or the food, and then I go to put it in the 25 gallon, the black totes that you can get, the containers you can get like at Lowe's or wherever. Home Depot. I drill holes in the sides. It's kind of Ian Stelper style when it comes to the open feeding. Set it off. Greg, you saw the setup, 30, 40, 50 yards away. Probably the further the better, they say, but I've never had issues where I put them. And the bees come and get them. The disadvantage of that is the stronger hives obviously will get more. The weaker hives can get kind of choked out that way. And so, and you never know all the feral bees in the area, the wasps, the yellow jackets, the ants, everything kind of helps participate in that. But it's worked for me, and the bees have done well with that. I do need to do more maybe of what you're doing with the bucket feeders, but I'm still just trying to figure all that out. I do try to leave some honey on the colonies when we harvest, and so there's some honey on there. And I've had a good result when I'm trying to build them up for pollination, just putting those open feeders out on the warm days. The bees can get the food when they need it during the winter time, and when it's too cold, they can't get it. And so it kind of works out well. I didn't see is our week of winter. It seems that way sometimes, Grammy, but sometimes it's 75 degrees in the middle of the week of February, so you never know.
I don't even want to.
But it's weird because to me, you'd think wintertime would be January, but usually it's colder here to me in February and early March than it is sometimes in December and January. It's kind of strange that way. But I'm just kind of beating around the bush here because I have not really honed that in yet. I'm still working on trying to figure all that out. I do know that you can get in trouble in a hurry in the spring, late winter, early spring, because we do have in January, February, we have a little bit of a red maple flow, and Mike Berry could probably attest to some of his dates might be a little different. I might be off on the dates a little bit. So the bees really start to brood up. Really, the beginning of the year, they start brooding up, and then we'll have a dearth. Like it'll just shut off, like in late February, early March. For a while, that it turns off. There's nothing, and they will starve like seemingly overnight because the bees have built up, and there's nothing. And last year that happened to me, and had I not had that fondant from Hive Alive that I had purchased, that I didn't think I was going to use, I might have lost some colonies because I didn't have time to mix up the food that day. I called my wife. I'm like, I need some. Go get that fondant, bring it to me. She dropped it off down the road away from the hives because they were fired up that day, as my bees tend to be. And I got that stuff in those hives. I probably saved a lot of colonies when I did that. Just put that fondant in there. The nukes I split. I think I gave them a fourth of a Hive Alive, and the singles I think I gave a half, and then the double deeps are deep and a half. So I put a full one on, and man, the bees just horked it down, but it got them through. And then within a couple of weeks, they were bringing in some nectar from somewhere, and so. But there was no food, no pollen, there was nothing in them at all. The hives, it's like they went from being in good shape to nothing, literally like within a week or two. They ate everything up. And so, but I haven't really done a good job of answering that question. I am still trying to figure that stuff out. But I'm getting there. I somehow get most of them through the winter, and we do okay. And it is a little different for me too, because I do have the pollination bees that I'm trying to build up and ramp up by the end of February. And the rest of them, I'm just fine if they don't build up until March, or even April. So it's kind of a balancing act for me to try and figure all that out. And, but I hope I answered the question. I don't know that I did, but if anyone out there has, any comments to how you do it here in the South, I'm definitely all ears.
I almost think you guys have it. I joke around with my wife that we either need to take our bees to South Georgia for the winter, or we need to take them to the upper peninsula of Michigan for the winter. Either one. I think anywhere like even Dothan, from Dothan up to Toledo, Ohio, it just seems like variables. The temperatures are so up and down where I can, where we have challenges that might be wind chill related, or too much cool air, or maybe the cold temps are a stressor. At least hopefully our bees are going semi-dormant or going into torpor, or they're just slowing way down for the year. You get down in the South where Bruce is at, and then you talk about just a rat's nest of potential problems. I mean, you're talking about having just all holy hell being unleashed with hive beetles and mites and
Yeah.
continual brood rearing, and then the bees staying active, and they're out doing, and they're trying to forage, but there's nothing for them to forage for. So they have attitude problems. There's nothing for them to eat. You have to stay on top of feed. You're trying to stay on top of pollen, or trying to keep the hive beetles off and the bees on, the temperatures, and it's
It
just
is. It's
no
complicated. It's hard,
matter
man.
where you
It
go
is
in the
difficult.
country, it's a dance.
It is difficult. It's
That's
different everywhere.
you know, it's different everywhere, and I think that's the, I don't
Yeah.
is there, if there was like a holy land for beekeeping, I don't know, kind of where it would be at, but it would just I don't know that there
Hawaii.
necessarily is one. Hawaii does sound
Hawaii.
nice. I gotta say Dothan was nice. I mean we were 15 minutes from that from Florida line. I mean, it the grass is always greener on the other side. To be
Yeah.
down south, as someone who produces nukes and queens, we are at a massive disadvantage,
That is
being a
true.
northern beekeeper, because we only have a very little window where we can actually do those things.
Hmm.
However, if our bees were down south, we would have a whole other set of challenges to kind of work through. That it's no matter which way you go, the grass is never necessarily greener. It's just maybe tuning into the challenges that you kind of have, and that you're kind of seeing there. Brian, you posted a
Yeah.
question there from the Beehive Homestead. Do you have to do anything to migratory lids with the bucket feeders, or what is the recommended thickness of wood lids? Well, funny you should ask, because right there, I hope Fred
That's it.
Dunn's watching, because I'm going to pull a Fred Dunn. Watch.
That's it. That's it right there.
Except Fred's way more professional, and he would have been there the whole time. This is a kind of one of our standard migratory lids, and we've got the same size hole that I cut in these buckets that we sell is the same size hole that I cut lids. And when you can actually see the bucket outline here, you can see my notes.
Mhm.
We were just talking about that queen. That's a blue dot queen from a couple years ago. That was one of our breeders. You can see the bucket outline on here.
Mhm.
What's unique and what's cool about this? Can I set it here? Yes. Okay, cool. The same plug that you use in the buckets, you can use right inside of the migratory lid and close it off. So if you're snow or rain, or you don't want to have a bucket feeder on, you can use that same plug that we carry, and you can actually plug it off. That's pretty handy. So what type of materials? There is so many different types of materials that you can use for everything. But I think if you're looking at ply, I think you need to consider 3/4. The more plies, the better. I'm a big fan of wax dipped ply. It just this seems to last a lot longer. It does a little bit better for us. We've tried all kind of different type of lid configurations and things, and just a nice, heavy, solid 3/4 ply that's wax dipped has worked out really, really good. Everything's so expensive anymore. I think a really great lid. If there was one superior lid, if there was one lid to cover them all, I would say I would vote for the what is that outfit? The
HDO.
Southern, Georgia Co. What is? I can't. I was just looking at their website. The HDO from the Atlanta, Georgia area. They're one of the distributors. The HDO is just beautiful, and the reason I say that, I have Advantic boxes and lids and things that I had built. Probably there might be a couple of them that are still around that are 5 or 6 years old, and they are just, no matter how often I paint them, they're flaky and they're falling apart, and every year they get heavier and heavier and heavier, and they're starting to kind of they need rotated out. We've used some concrete form board, which is just like it sounds like. It's ply, exterior ply that's used to form concrete. There's 1/2 inch, there's 3/4. That works great. And in essence, that's what HDO is. HDO is that there's different variables in how many ply there actually are in that 3/4. But the difference is an MDO will typically have that melamine on one side and almost like a papery side on the other. And that papery side is typically where you can spray your concrete release on those boards so you can pull those forms off. Where HDO is nice is it's smooth on both sides. So what you end up with is a really smooth surface that you can write all your notes on, which is kind of cool. I bought some singles as we were kind of upping our genetic game. We brought back a bunch of singles from Bob, and that was just some old equipment that needed to kind of rotated out, And there's HDO lids on there that are probably 7 years old, that are just solid and they're true, and all they need is a coat of paint and they're good to go. I've never seen anything quite like that yet, other than the wax dip stuff that Bob and I had seen when we were down visiting the Warners and John Knox and such. But anyways, I could go on all day long about equipment, because we have just, after you spend enough time and money on them, you start to get too intimately familiar with some of these ins and outs, because cost you money and time kind of redoing things. Different types of joinery, different types of equipment, different types of lid, different types of bottoms. And hey, what works for me might be completely different for somebody else.
Yep. And I just want to bring up something. I know it's probably going to be a couple weeks before I can make it back down for a learning yard. It's probably going to have to be another day. But one piece of equipment that just want to tell people that I could never get to work. I take this thing down to Nature's Image Farm, and I even hear the words and people talk about it, and it's like the bane of my beekeeping is that Flow Super. Bruce, the Flow Super is about, what is it, probably 90% filled at his place?
Solid, probably solid 60. The flow is slowed down a little bit, but they are all in it. They are busy.
Yeah.
It depends on the hive, I think, with those things. I've seen them. I know a guy right now that they love their flow hive. The bees have done well with it, but some people have a hard time with it. So
yeah,
you just have to have super strong bees that are willing to go through that excluder.
Bruce, I stopped there and we're walking out, past some colonies, and we get even, we got 15, 20 feet from that thing, and that there Mr. Burns was already laughing. Pulled that back cover off, and all I saw was that nectar in there, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. Well, they work. They do okay for some people. It's just gotta be, it's gotta be the right bees and taken care of in the right way, and everything done timed out just perfectly. And if you do that, you can be successful with them. I'm not a flow hive hater. I just don't have any. It's not worth it to pay the money to me to.
Oh, I know.
To do that. But then I say that, and I've got 6 apimays and 3 apimay nukes in my backyard.
There are some lessons to learn there. Yeah, there's some lessons to learn that we could all take away from that. Is it's really easy to say, you hear the word flow hive and all of a sudden you're gonna up your nose at it. You hear the word apimay and you're thinking just some kind of highfalutin type of a situation there, and why would you spend that kind of money? And you look at this and you look at that. I tell you, and you guys have already heard me say it before, but I was not the biggest fan of flow hives, not because of the equipment itself, but sometimes I think what the hands-off, the perception of a more hands-off approach, we all know what that leads with bees. That's usually not in a real good situation. However, I had to really check myself before I wreck myself. Did I just date myself? Did anyone actually get the Ice Cube reference? You got it, Brian? Okay.
Oh, I got it.
Here's the thing. Like, you got to check yourself in them situations, because just because it's not right for you doesn't mean it's not right for somebody else. And sometimes our opinions on something, it's not actually truth that we're working with. It's just bias, right? Just because we're biased doesn't mean that we're biased or skewed in the matter of truth in any kind of a situation. Well, the truth of the matter is, when I had a brand new year one beekeeper who bought packages from us, showed me photos and videos of him and his daughters harvesting beautiful honey their first year out of a flow hive super, and then brought me their first offerings, I had no choice but to really step back and reevaluate my mental approach on that. Because if something like a flow hive super gets people into beekeeping and they're maintaining their hives and that facilitates that relationship with the bees, then God bless them. And I'd like to see more folks get flow hives if that's what it actually takes. There's a lot of things that we just automatically discount and throw out. We have these really poor ways of thinking, these absolutist way of thinking, to where nothing is cut and dry. But if we actually look at it for what it is, hey, there's room for all these kind of ideas and approaches at the table, and I think we could all learn a lot from that.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to thank it just blew back through there. Let's see. Brian, yep. Mark McCaffrey, thank you, sir, for the super chat. This has to go towards getting Greg better internet. Yeah, I know. We're in a new spot out here, and I'm going to try to get that internet boosted. But no matter what we do, we max out at 50. For anyone wants to geek out, we max out at 15 megabytes a second on the download, and 1/2 of a megabyte on the upload. So no matter what we currently do in this situation, you're going to be stuck with max headroom until we do something different. But it's about 9:45, guys, and I feel like I'm just getting wound up, and that none of us need that, because I could just go on all night. But I do want to thank you guys for taking time out to join us on a live chat. I know it's been a while. I think Brian is going to be literally, we're going to hear, Bruce and I are going to get these photos from Brian, where it's going to be Brian is going to be sunburned in the sand, and his feet are just so sore from walking on the sand, and he's sunburned and just doesn't know which type of sun cream to use or which aloe he needs. Brian's going to be taking a little time away, aren't you?
I'm not going to say I don't get sunburnt, but if I wear sunscreen, I'm typically good. But next week, I think, when it just happens to be Wednesday, I'm going to be out on a catamaran and at some island, I don't know, somewhere down in the Caribbean. So it's going to be horrible, and I'll be thinking of you guys Wednesday at 8:00 when I'm, driving back to the condo on the beach.
I'm sure you will.
It'll be
so
horrible.
We'll be off. We'll be off that next week. But Brian, did you have some announcements or anything that you needed to just get off your chest?
Yeah, the next live that we do once we cycle to my channel, there's going to be some giveaways. I've got let me go down. Oh my gosh, I gotta find. There's a $100 Hilco and a $50 Hilco code that I'll do. So 2 there. And then I also have some frames with some foundation from Premiere that they've tossed in just to celebrate my 3,000 subscriber. So the very next live, now I'm not going to do anything where you comment this and you comment that and you do this and that, whatever. You're just going to have to be in the live, and we're just going to do and we're not, we're legit now with our contests. So you'll just have to be part of the live. That live, and I'll title it 3,000 subscriber giveaway, whatever, and you'll have a chance on winning some Hilco, gift cards and some Premier Foundation. So, and there might even be some other, some Streamteam swag. Who knows?
Ooh.
But yeah, the next live, that'll be it. It'll be some giveaways. So,
And that's on your channel.
yeah.
But mine's going to be the next one, 2 weeks from tonight, same time, same place. We're hoping. So I'm trying to put something together. I've got some ideas of what I want to do. Just a couple of guests I might want to bring in, but we'll see. Haven't decided exactly what we're going to do yet, but may have a couple of giveaways on there too. I have some giveaways to do, and maybe some other things I'm just thinking about. So it should be a lot of fun. And of course, 2 weeks time, there's going to be some changes in the apiaries and everybody's bee yards, what's going on. And by then I'll have a better idea. I hope they'll get a video or two out about kind of how Greg's queens are doing, how my bees are doing, and we can discuss some of that. I'm sure you guys will probably be doing some of that as well. So, it should be a lot of fun 2 weeks from now. It's just, we've done these. I think we've only missed 2 weeks since January, haven't we? 2 Wednesday nights since January.
Something like that.
So we've been pretty consistent. And Greg, what you said earlier about burnout is real. I've just been so tired. We've had a lot going on in our family. Just with, we've been out of town, and my daughter started college this past weekend, and just the honey harvest and the bees and just everything we've been trying to do. And I've just been really just, trying to get the little store, the honey store thing going. And just a lot of things I've been thinking about, and just burned out a little bit. So if my video frequency isn't as much as it has been, forgive me. I'm gonna continue to do videos, may back off a little bit on the frequency, just depending on what's going on for a little while. But we will continue to do these lives, and we want you guys to just know we do appreciate you completely. I wanted to share a little something though, something that John Clark shared. John, I don't know if he's still on or he was earlier. I think it's Clark's Bees is his channel.
Clark's Bees and such.
Clark's Bees and such. I'm not sure where he's located, but he's got some
Indiana.
fun videos, and this is a great quote. I don't know how many of you guys saw it. He put this on Facebook, and then I stole it and I put it on my Facebook page. He said, "There's a place called adventure that lives just on the horizon. It calls us forth over the next ridge and around the next bend. It's where life's good stories live, the ones that will be told around campfires for a lifetime and more. But adventure doesn't give up her secrets easily. She keeps them hidden from all, but the most willing to pay the asking price." And I guess that's by Clay Hayes, is the author of that. And I just think that's an awesome little quote there. I love that because, that's the way it is in life. Adventure's out there, and it's awesome. And every time, I use the word adventure with my beekeeping channel, and I consider it to be an adventure. Greg, wasn't that an adventure that day you were down here? My goodness, that was fun. It was so fun. And had we not been in the bees, that wouldn't have happened. And so you do have to pay the price. You do have to get out, and you do have to do it. You can't just sit at home and expect to have adventures and to discover those things, to make those stories that you'll talk about years from now. And I get a little sappy on stuff like that. I love those kind of quotes, and they kind of keep me going lots of times. And John, I really appreciate that quote and putting it up there, and hope you don't mind me stealing it and putting it on my Facebook page as well. So I did also want to mention one more time, I know a lot of you guys that are on here now weren't on here early. Jonathan Mackley, him and his wife Heather, if you saw my most recent video that I put on out in Utah, it was a fun video, a fun day. If you haven't seen it, I'd appreciate if you watch it. But they had kind of a natural disaster happen just a couple of days ago. They live in the desert, but it wasn't a desert on that day, and their basement got completely flooded in their house, and they don't have flood insurance, I guess because they live in a desert, possibly. But if you go to, it's Heather and Jonathan Mackley, Maclee, is the Facebook page, and they do have opportunities for you to help them out if you would like to go check that out. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. But it's just offering that to you guys if you want to go check it out. Maybe give them a little helping hand if you can do that. Appreciate it. So, but that's about all I've got. Just a couple of weeks from now, we'll be back here, same time, same place. And I think we got some good stuff lined up, and it's been fun tonight, guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
Brian, any final
and Greg,
thoughts?
I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed that day. I mean, with you and Mike and everybody that came down here, man, that was just so much fun. And I can't wait to get in. I'm 5 for 5 so far on the queens I've looked at. I'm pretty sure. I know I'm 4 for 4. Probably, I think I'm 5 for 5. But I got about 11 or 12 more to check in on. So we'll do that Saturday, and I'll know more. But even 5 for 5 is not a bad average so far.
That's, you're right. That's it was a lot of fun, cracking lids and lighting smokers and just working bees with each other. It was the trip to Tennessee, the trip to Alabama are times that I'll never forget. To have the opportunity where we all make our schedules available, and we all kind of give in that scenario is just, it's awesome. You've heard me say that the bees are just a conduit to the people, and I think that's the true blessing in all this, is to be able to spend this life with folks that we're just, even if we are different minded on certain things, it's awesome that we can share this experience together, to break bread. I consider every single one of you friends, to spend time with you in the bee yard, to crack lids, to kind of cruise around. And yes, Grammy midwife getting stung 83 times. Yeah, hey, that's all part of it. I'll never forget it. And I tell you, it's so cool to be able to have that experience. And then one of the just added benefits is we happen to be, I hate to even call myself a content creator, because I feel like most of the time I'm just doing a poor job being consistent and trying to get videos out there. But to be able to just hit record and capture some of these moments, to hear Bruce, kind of share what it is about those bugs in a box, to hear Mike kind of just share with us what it is to be able to get in there and manipulate these majestic creatures. Randy, Grammy, Tim, Craig Midget, Ed, Dugan, Zach, and Matt. If you guys want to check out a little bit more of this, if you want a little deeper dive into what it is about these bugs in a box, when we get done here, check out that bugs in a box video that we just posted. It's just so cool to hear what it is about those bugs in a box for all of us. And Bruce, it was an amazing time to be able to come down, visit. I would encourage everybody who's listening or watching this, don't be afraid, don't be shy to reach out to your local area and start networking with folks. You'd be surprised, what that can actually do, not only for you, for them, for the community. Everybody wins. It's an awesome opportunity to be able to kind of fellowship with each other when bees are the conduit. It's an awesome thing. Brian, did you have any closing thoughts before we cut loose for the night?
I'm thinking about the beach.
Some beach somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Thinking about the beach.
I'm looking forward to not seeing any video of Brian's vacation, not because I'm jealous, which I am, and I think you're going to enjoy yourself just spending some time being in the moment. I think that's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, no video. So
Sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah.
Just spend time in the moment. Well, I want to thank everyone who's hung out with us all night, spending time in these moments. We appreciate you guys for all the super chats. I want to thank you guys for giving. That means an awful lot. It really does, and I want to say thank you. If you want to check out more on what we're up to over the next few weeks, we're going to have some more episodes with me and old Dan Bokrist, aka DJ Barracuda, on the Contrary Beekeeper Show, where it's just two Ohio beekeepers sharing our experiences, trying to grow out these bee yards and these businesses. So stay tuned to the Contrary Beekeepers Show podcast. If you're interested in bucket feeders, learning more about those or the plugs, you can go right to our website at naturesimagefarm.com. naturesimagefarm.com. And I also got to thank everybody for giving the honey to put in at the shop. It's beautiful. I love to show off your honey. If that's something that you'd like to do, you can shoot us an email at naturesimagefarm@gmail.com, and we'd love to get in touch with some of that too. Guys, I guess on that note, I'm going to thank you both for taking away time from your families and the things that you're busy doing to spend some time with all of us here. As always, I want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change that you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.